Okay, shalom. Right, very, very, very interesting gematria in this lesson. We're going to be looking at the gematria for the serpent. I did some studying during Sukkoth. I heard that this particular rabbi had died, and I had got some of his books. Very controversial thinker. Don't agree with absolutely everything that he has to say. However, he did provide some books regarding the writings, the secret writings of Vilna Gaon, which I did enjoy, and I learnt a lot about the concept of Mashiach ben Yosef from him. So we're going to be having a look at this concept of the Ouroboros from I think that's how you pronounce it, from a Jewish perspective. You find this Ouroboros in different cultures. This is a Celtic one, and it's the concept of the serpent with the tail in its mouth. Let's go and have a look. There's some really interesting things we can learn, and when we're thinking about this concept and how the serpent restricts our thinking so that we're not able to perceive the Mashiach in a correct way, and we're not able to perceive, therefore, YHVH. But we can take this concealment and transform it, the concealment itself, and transform it into the light of Moshiach. Very exciting gematria, and we're only going to be looking at the gematria of Nachash, the serpent. So it's utterly and absolutely unbelievable. I can't believe that I've not gone through this gematria before. But anyway, this particular rabbi is passing, prompting me to have a look at him. So in some way, may this merit his soul to have an aliyah. Okay. So the Torah Ouroboros. This is what I got from his book, but I've had to draw it myself because I didn't want to have copyright, and I couldn't get an image on the internet from it. So it's like a 2D representation of a 3D Torah shape based on the teachings by Vilna Gaon. And like I say, this idea was taken from this rabbi's book, Rabbi Joel David Bakst, who passed during Sukkot. Okay, so we've got this idea, but in Judaism, rather than it being a snake with his tail in his mouth, what is this is the body of the snake. This is obviously the head that I have created on PowerPoint with whatever shapes I had available. But the tail, this is the body of the snake. The tail splits in two, and this is the twin messiahs, the concept of Mashiach ben Yosef, Mashiach ben David. So the tail splits, and then the two split tails go around into the mouth of the serpent, if you like. Okay, so I'm just doing these images. We're going to get to the gematria probably in a couple of minutes, but if we don't understand what concepts are within Judaism, these images that are within Judaism are only there to help us understand the phenomena of the reality that YHVH has placed us in, and what we are to do with this reality to bring it from a place of exile to a place of redemption, from a place of irrepair, if you like, to a place of complete repair, tikkun. Right. So in Judaism, this is seen as like the brain, the split brain. So we've got, this is like an image of a brain. This is the split down the middle. And somehow the Ouroboros is symbolic of that left brain and right brain. And then we are supposed to dwell in the middle brain. So we've got the right brain representing Chochmah, the left brain representing Bina, and then the middle representing Da'ath. I am going to do a lesson on that because I've just also analysed the more deeply than the gematria for Chochmah, Bina and Da'ath, which is wisdom. Chochmah, Bina is understanding, and Da'ath is your synthesis of those two, if you like. And this is the Da'ath, which is knowledge. Okay, Da'ath, supernal Da'ath, is really the concept of Mashiach. It's represented by Moshe. So we know, like here, Moshe is the body of the bird, Mashiach ben Yosef, the right wing of the left wing of the bird, Mashiach ben David, left wing of the bird. I talk about this all the time. This is another analogy, if you like, or another motif that we can use to understand the concepts of the Mashiach of YHVH. However, we haven't got a bird. What we've got is we've got a snake that we've got to transform into that bird of redemption. We've got to transform this darkness, the Mashiach hidden in this world at this time, through the serpent lying on concealing the name YHVH. We've got to take that concealment that presents itself as a serpent at this time that bites very hard. All of humanity has been bitten by this serpent, and we've got to transform all that concealment into a revelation that reveals that bird of redemption, okay, that we can take flight, and that brings us into unity with the name YHVH and prepares us to receive that goodness that he has planned for us to receive. And this is coiled round our brains, okay, so it affects our understanding, it affects our wisdom, and it affects our knowledge of the concept of Mashiach. And I've mentioned this many times, if we don't have the true Mashiach there, we have got this serpent, the false Mashiach, in one way or another. We will come across this. So it's like it's coiled round our brain, and it's affecting the way that we perceive reality. And it will affect it in that it will have a very restricted consciousness of the name YHVH. We may have some understanding of YHVH, but not in the liberated, full way that he desires to reveal his name, and he desires to pour the light of his name out upon all humanity. It will be a very restricted, constricted view of YHVH, because we're looking at it through serpent's eyes, or through this concept of the serpent, when we should be looking at YHVH through the concept of the Mashiach. This is the way in the book. Oops, I've just jumped. This is the way that the serpent is. This is the way that the image of the serpent in this Ouroboros motif this positioned according to the brain. Apparently the serpent head is at the back. I don't know. That's what it says in the book, so I've got to go with that. However, we can see this in the world in which we have lived throughout the 6,000 years of history of humanity, very clearly represented in other cultures. Let's go and have a look. So we've got the Egyptians, and as you can see, look, the serpent going down the middle of the head, the serpent going down the middle of the head, and this is Nefertiti. This has been destroyed. This bit here has dropped off this particular hat of Nefertiti. But if you look at the images, the reconstruction, they've got the serpent, the cobra coming up like this. So what's at their forefront of their mind is this snake. And I've done teachings about this before, and I'll put the links in about this is supernal da'ath. This middle of the brain represents supernal da'ath, and Moshe represents that particular spherot, i.e. Mashiach should be there. He should be there, synthesize. He should be the synthesis between our godly knowledge, our godly wisdom, and our godly understanding. Da'ath is the synthesis between those opposite forces, if you like, the masculine wisdom and the feminine understanding, and somewhere in between there's this synthesis called understanding, called da'ath, and that is the realm of the Moshiach. And as we can see, we've got a serpent there instead. So this is the concept that I keep going on about. If we don't have the truth about Mashiach, we will have a serpent there in one form or another. We will have some influence from what's called the false Mashiach, Armalos. We'll come across the Gematria. I just wanted to point this out because the Egyptians obviously are, we know that Yosef, for example, went into Egypt. And Egypt represents that constriction. In fact, it means that, doesn't it? Mitzrayim means constriction and narrowing. And we don't want that. We want the flow between heaven and earth to be fully and completely open to receive the light of the name YHVH. We don't want this serpent mentality and exilic mindset to crush our opportunity to receive that what YHVH desires to receive. So I just thought I'd point that out, because the Egyptians were very, very much aware of this, and they literally worshipped the serpent. They worshipped the serpent. Do you know why? Because they saw themselves as God. They didn't want the truth of the light coming from above to below. They wanted this false belief that they themselves are actually living gods. So they were quite happy to serve the concept of the snake. And the whole pharaonic mindset is completely opposite the Hebrew mindset. We want to be free of that, free to serve YHVH and nothing else beside him. So anyway, it's all interesting. Let's go look at the gematria, because it gets even more interesting than this. Right. Oh, just wait a minute. Okay, so I've had to go. I forgot to do the animations on the PowerPoint. So anyway, let's go through these very, very interesting gematria, and we'll go through them one by one. So we've got the basic gematria of the Nachash, the serpent. It comes to 358. Okay, so 358, as we know through my teachings, is the exact opposite of Moshiach. So you've either got one or the other. You need, in order to reveal the Moshiach, you need to take all the lies and falsehood regarding the Moshiach and transform it from the darkness and the concealment into the revelation. The serpent is the force that conceals the name YHVH in this world at this time. Even the word world means hidden. So we have a world where the name YHVH is hidden. It's hidden by this concept called Nachash, serpent. So it's really just a code word for that power and force that is able to conceal the name YHVH. Okay, that's the power and force that YHVH himself created in order to provide a concealment of his name. If it isn't own name, because really YHVH fills everything and surrounds everything. He fills all and surrounds all. So he's got to have some way of concealing that true reality. So he conceals it with the Nachash. So although the Nachash and every bit of evil that the Nachash represents feels very real, compared to true reality, it's an illusion and falsehood. It is an illusion and falsehood, but we have got to take that serpent and transform the darkness and concealment into a revelation, because as we've seen in the teachings that I've done, and I will put one up in the comments if I remember, through the light of the Mashiach we see the light of the name YHVH. So we have got to transform the serpent, the lies and the falsehood, especially regarding Mashiach ben Yosef. The whole concept of Mashiach, it's very restricted and it's very constricted. And that restricted and constricted understanding of the Mashiach prevents us from receiving this outpouring of light from the name YHVH, simply because it conceals the truth, conceals the true reality. So we've got to go through this process of revelation from the concealment itself. We've got to take all those lies and through them reveal YHVH and all his glory. Okay, so I go through this all the time, but hopefully you can understand the pharaohs and the Erev Rav and the Romans, all the forces of the exile, the exilic mindsets, the Ishmaelite mindset, are all really they are all part of the serpent. All the exilic mindsets are that like got the serpent wrapped around them, because they haven't got a full understanding of the concept of the Mashiach. So they have not got restored supernal da'ath, restored supernal knowledge. They haven't got the truth in their seat of consciousness, and then they cannot perceive true reality, which is YHVH, and the fact that there's nothing else beside him. So I just wanted to drill that home and home and home again, so we're very clear with this concept. 43 represents Esav ordinally, and Esav represents physicality. So we know the serpent part of that concealment is physicality itself. The forces of physicality and us living in this physical reality provides a concealment of the name YHVH. So we've got to even transform our Esav, our evil inclinations, the nations, our bodies. This is all synonymous. Mashiach is representing Yaakov, truth, okay? Soul, Yisrael. This represents, the serpent mentality represents, this is redemption. This is exile. This is exile of our soul into our body. This is the descent of the soul into exile, into our own bodies, in order to correct our own bodies, so that our bodies ultimately will resurrect and unite with our souls, perfectly corrected, in a different relationship between body and soul as what we've got now, in a much more exalted level. We all fell in the serpent. We all fell into this reality. We are all subject to the influence of the serpent. We will all rise in Moshiach. Okay? So we've got this eternal battle, haven't we, between Esav and Yaakov, between the soul and the body, between Israel and the nations, and between the good inclination, which is powered only by the truth, and the evil inclination, which is powered by fantasy and fiction. So that's why we get the false Messiah, because when our bodies dominate, we have a false Messiah, because our fantasy fiction understanding of Mashiach dominates. Redemption is when we have the truth, when our soul dominates over our body, where Israel dominates over the nations, where truth dominates over lies and fantasy and fiction. We've subdued our body to the side of holy. Okay, and there is shalom between body and soul. So I go across this all the time. However, we're going to be looking at this number here. Okay, and I'll be weaving all these concepts in that I've just talked about. Yaakov is very, very important. We're going to come across Yaakov. But we can also see that Esav's very important. We've got Esav, and we've got to transform that into the holiness of the Mashiach. Okay, that's part of our work, to subdue our body, to subdue the nations, to Yisrael, to subdue our body to our soul. I go on and on about this because this is the truth. It's the truth, and it's the reality that we're in. So here we go, straight away. We've got this massive, powerful connection to the concept of Mashiach ben Yosef, because it is in the light of Mashiach ben Yosef. Once we grasp the concept of Mashiach ben Yosef, everything else will fall into its right place. Okay, so it's very much connected, and the serpent is very much concealing the truth regarding Mashiach ben Yosef, and a revelation of the truth regarding Mashiach ben Yosef defeats this force, this evil force of concealment, and transforms it into a revelation. So we've got, and Yosef said to his brothers, Ani Yosef, I am Joseph. Okay, Ha'od Avi Chai, is my father still alive? It comes to 802, and 802 is 2 times 401. So this is the force, Mashiach ben Yosef, that ultimately defeats the concept, the restricted consciousness and the restricted exilic mindset that conceals the name YHVH. This is the force, Yosef, that defeats it. So we've also got, let me just see if I need to say anything. And this is at the exact point when Yosef reveals himself to his brothers. That revelation of Yosef to his brothers defeats the Nachash mentality. Okay, it brings unity, and that unity reveals the Mashiach. That unity of between the brothers reveals the Mashiach, that reveals the name YHVH. Okay, and then we've got this concept, the definite article. So you use the words Aleph and Tav when you have got the letter He, like the whatever it could be, like the heavens and the earth. So from the first verse of Torah, you've got Bereshith bara Elohim et Hashemayim wa et Aharetz. So when you've got a definite article, you use the word eth, the aleph and the tav. Okay, it comes to 401. The aleph is 1, the tav is 400, so it comes to 401. It's extraordinarily messianic, really. There's a lot in Judaism, there's lots written about it. But we know, for example, Yeshua himself called himself the Aleph and the Tav. It's written in the Greek New Testament as the Alpha and the Omega, but he didn't speak Greek. We know when he was speaking, he would have spoken Hebrew. So he was calling himself the Aleph and the Tav. He was saying he's the Mashiach. Why do we know that? Because the regular is 401. Which is exactly the same as the serpent. Mashiach ben Yosef appears as a serpent. It's exactly as Yeshua said, just as Moshe lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, so too the Son of Man must be lifted up. So he is initially is the serpent. We have to transform that reality. We have to transform that. He appears as a serpent. We have to transform that into a revelation of the Mashiach. But he wasn't just calling himself the serpent. He was actually telling you clearly who he is. Okay, and I'll just get to that in a minute, because the ordinal is 23 and 23 is Chaya, which is, there's two aspects to Chaya. Chaya is obviously the Eve rectified. This is Eve in the Garden of Eden, by the way. Okay. This is Eve rectified, the mother of all living, but it's also the soul level of Mashiach ben David. Mashiach ben Yosef comes at the soul level of Chaya, the highest level of soul. Moshe came at the level of Neshama. Okay, the soul that is still within the body. Yechida is above the body. It's far above the body. Chaya is still above the body, but it's close. So there's 5 levels. This is the one that's in between, the high level of Yechida and the Neshama. Okay, and that's the soul level that Mashiach ben David will be coming back as the soul level of the mother of all living. Why? Because he will unite all humanity. He will be the ultimate rectification for Adam and Eve. Okay, he's very much connected to Adam and Eve. So he will be coming back, and like we can see very clearly the connection between Mashiach ben David and Chaya, because if we add these two together up, they come to 424, which is Mashiach ben David spelt out. It's the regular of Mashiach ben David. Okay, come across that number all the time. So we can see these powerful concepts starting to come together between Mashiach ben David and Chaya and this whole concept of the Nachash. Okay, and I'll show you a word from Genesis that Chaya used, and it will transform possibly the way we start to think about this concept of original sin. Down here it looks like sin. Up in the Garden of Eden it might not have well been sin. We've got to get back to that level of thinking. We've got to stop thinking like a serpent and start thinking like Moshiach. And these little clues that we've been left in the Torah for us to unravel are very important, and they're of this time now. So Chaya, Adam, and Mashiach ben David, the concept of Mashiach ben David need to unite as one. Why do we know that? Because in Judaism the word achad, oneness, and that is exactly the thing that we are desiring to receive. This is exactly the light that we must receive from above, from YHVH. This is exactly what YHVH desires for us to receive, and this is the whole process of rectification that we are in order to receive a revelation of his oneness, his absolute sovereignty, that there is only YHVH and nothing else beside him. Okay, so Echad, the word for Echad, as in Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Okay, Hear, O Israel, YHVH is God, YHVH is one. Okay, Echad is Adam, the Aleph of Echad is Adam, the Chet of Echad is Chaya, and the Daleth of Echad is David. Okay, so we know that they unite together in order to reveal the light of Mashiach, the oneness of Mashiach ben David. So we know that obviously Adam fell because of the serpent, but it's the last Adam, Mashiach ben David, who will rise and cause. So we all fell in Adam, We all fell when this influence of the serpent entrapped him or whatever. This is what it looks like from below. In the Garden of Eden, I'm not sure that this would have looked like it looks from below, like Adam and Eve sinned by eating the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, something very high and exalted beyond what we can possibly perceive down here happened up there, but it will all ultimately end in something extremely good, i.e. the resurrection of Adam from the dead, and we will all rise in him, and he will be resurrected to a whole higher level, the level of Moshiach. Okay, so there's some dynamics going on between this force of the serpent, this force of Moshiach, and Chaya. Okay, and it's all happening at the Garden of Eden, a much higher and exalted level of spiritual awareness than what we can at this time comprehend. Let's go and have a look at this phenomena, though, that we see in the Garden of Eden. So there was Chaya, Eve, and she saw the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and she saw it was a delight. Tahawa who? It was a delight to her eyes. Okay, bearing in mind she's not a human as we understand a human to be. She's a super exalted spiritual being. Okay, and she was able to perceive in this tree, it was a total delight. It was pleasing to her eyes. Okay, that's in Genesis 3:6. You can go look at the whole verse if you want. However, this statement comes to 424, which we know is Mashiach ben David. Okay, so what did she see that was a delight to her eyes? She was able to perceive something of this whole concept of Mashiach ben David. Okay, and through that she was possibly, and bearing in mind that her own husband, okay, her own husband is Adam, and Mashiach ben David is Adam rectified to the highest possible level. So she was really seeing something very good that we are not able to even fully understand. This is exalted spiritual levels. So down here, it looks like a sin. It looks like she was enticed by this force called Nachash, serpent, to eat something she was told not to eat. And down here it looks like a sin because we've been suffering for 6,000 years. And I mean suffering for 6,000 years, very, very harsh suffering down in this diminished, we're exiled from the Garden of Eden, so this diminished, crushed consciousness, restricted consciousness, exilic mindset that we've been suffering for the last 6,000 years. But there's something in it from that exalted position that they were at that would suggest that it wasn't a sin at all. She was just prepared to go through some kind of rectification. Adam also, because Adam and Eve are one. They was prepared to go through some form of rectification that involved a descent into this reality where the serpent has dominion in order to accomplish ultimate rectification called a force called Moshiach, and that they represent the whole of humanity. They represent the whole of humanity. Okay, so we know that all humanity fell. All humanity is suffering this exile. Everything with Yod He Vav is an ultimate good purpose, and that suffering, the good that comes of the suffering, is a rectification for all humanity to experience that resurrection from the dead that is experienced through eating this tree of the knowledge of good and evil. But really that death is for the sake of ascent, because we can see here that she was able to perceive that through this process of rectification, a much higher holy level would be ultimately attained. So from up there, she was just going through in her eyes, she was doing whatever it took to to attain that level of greater rectification that would ultimately bring her and Adam into a much higher and deeper and face-to-face relationship with YHVH, because however exalted it was, there was still the potential to go even higher. Okay, and obviously this process that of 6,000 years have been part of that. And then again, we've got that it was a delight comes to 46. 46 is actually related to Mashiach ben David as well, rectified Mashiach ben David. I'll show you why. But together, those two come to 470. And we've always got this concept of one opposite the other. You know, for everything, for every revelation of the name YHVH through Mashiach, we have a concealment, an equal opposite concealment by the serpent. So this number, we've got a very powerful revelation to the truth, and a powerful this number is connected to a powerful concealment, the most evil, hardest concealment of all, Amalek. Let's have a look at this 46. 46 is 2 times higher, so we can see even it was a delight is very much related to higher. Also, 446, 46 times 2 is 92. And 92 is the rectified spelling out of Mashiach ben David, the ordinal of it. So Mashiach ben David, when David has got a yud, comes to 92. And 46 times 2 is 92. So again, we've got that connection to Mashiach ben David. Okay, so we can say also Chaya, 4 times Chaya is Mashiach ben David rectified, the ordinal of Mashiach ben David rectified. Okay, what else have we got then? So I hope I've explained this. I will be coming back to these concepts because it's very important to drill this home. We're living in very difficult times of exile where we are being tested to an extreme. I've just been tested. I've just had COVID pneumonia. It was a big test. And we lose sight because these are the sorts of things that create a concealment, but we've got to transform that into a revelation. Okay, whatever we have got, the conceals that we are going through, our suffering, we've got to take that concealment and actually, you know, it's like, I had this image in my mind the other day. I was like, where am I? What am I doing? And it was like this image, it was just yesterday, in fact, this image came into my mind, and it was like, you know, taking the skin of the serpent, you know, like almost chopping its head off, if you like, chopping its head and being left with its body, and then it almost like an, you know, if you were to skin a serpent, but the serpent was, you were left with his skin in its hand, the skin of the serpent, and you're sort of dragging it inside out, you know, like a tunnel almost, but pulling it backwards on itself so the inside of the snake skin was revealed as opposed to the scales on the outside. And he had this image that inside is the light of Moshiach. You know, we just got to take this horrific concealment that presents itself as a serpent, turn it inside out, and somehow inside the snake skin is the light of Moshiach, that hidden light. It's just that YHVH hid it inside the serpent, so we've got to do something in order to reveal it. It was just an image that came into my mind because I just had this question. I don't even know where it came from really, but it was like, where am I and what am I doing? And then all of a sudden this really bizarre image came into my mind, and I thought, oh, that ties in. I can understand that in a sort of a mystical way. I've got the serpent in my hand, and all I need to do is flip it inside out to reveal the light of the Moshiach. And I thought, okay, so that's where I am, and that's what I'm doing. As is every single human being. We've got our own experiences of the serpent, our individual experiences of the serpent, because when we rise in Moshiach, we will rise as one body, and we are affected by one serpent, one force of concealment. We will rise as one united body called Adam, but we will still be individuals. So my experience of the serpent is completely different to other people's. There's obviously commonality, but there's obviously individuality as well. So I've got my own little serpent in my hand, what little bit of darkness I've been dished, and I literally have to skin it, turn it inside as crush its head so it stops biting me for a start. We've got to deal with that. Crush its head. It's bitten our heel. We've got to drag the skin inside out to reveal the light of Moshiach. I'm pretty sure that is like a motif within Judaism as well, because I'll tell you why. The rabbis point out the difference between light and skin. So it sounds exactly the same. Both are or. So if you say light, it's or. It's aleph, vav, resh. If you say or, skin, it's still or, but it's ayin, vav, resh. And the rabbis put the rabbis link that together, and I know that the garments of skin that it's mentioned in the Torah, in one of the very famous rabbis' commentaries, it was written garments of light. He changed the or into garments of light. So we know there's a connection between skin and light. Okay, so we're living in a situation where we've all been enclosed in skin. We've got to transform that into light, from skin or into light or. Okay, so there is, it's not just something I've dreamed up. There is a definite connection to some Torah concepts in that, what I've just said. Right, let's move on before I talk myself into the ground. Let's have a look. So again, we've got this concept then. Mashiach ben David is the 424. Okay, and we've got also this Amalek spelled out as it sounds. Each letter of Amalek spelled out for the first filling also comes to 470. And I will point out as well, because I've done this so many times in my teachings, the verse, and God said, let there be light, and there was light. Yehi or, Yhi or, let there be light, and there was light. The gematria of that is 470. Okay, let there be light, and there was light. There's two aspects of that. There's the light itself, and then there's the concealment. We don't get the light handed to us on the plate. It comes in the form of snake skin we've to turn inside out. We've got to transform the skin into light. Another thing with skin is or. The value for or, light, is 207. The value for or, as in skin, is, what will it be? It will be 276. And the difference is 69, which is 3 times chaya. So we've got a connection between the difference between skin and or. The gematria is 69. So we've got a link to chaya, the corrected version of Eve, and also Mashiach ben David, because he will be coming back at the soul level, called chaya. Okay, so again with that concept, there's some very interesting connections that can be made. However, in this time, before the revelation of Mashiach that reveals the light of Mashiach, YHVH, we've got to go and battle against those forces of concealment, and the worst force of concealment is Amalek, doubt. And this particular enemy targets the concept of Mashiach ben Yosef. It's the doubt regarding Mashiach ben Yosef that is our very biggest battle that we will ever face as humankind. But from that will be defeated the serpent and revealed the Mashiach. Okay, but the force of Amalek manifest physically is the Nazis. That's one of the ways in which in our modern time history, recent history, I should say, that is the way that humanity has had to face this horrific evil opponent. Okay, it's the Nazis. So this is not a force that we want to go up against spiritually. If we can defeat it, we don't want to go up against it physically or spiritually. We need to defeat it spiritually in order that it does not manifest physically. Nazism is a manifestation of Amalek, and this is growing with the far-right movement. And it's not just the far-right movement, there's other extreme sects and cults at this moment that are very much tied to an Amalekite influence. And even within Judaism, there's an Amalekite, Erev Rav influence that's really very, very nasty. And they're parading around as Jews. Amalekite got dressed up to fool people. So we've got to really pray with all our heart that we are able to discern the forces of Amalek, the forces of doubt, spiritually. And hopefully, if we defeat the root, the spiritual root, it will not have a physical manifestation. So if we defeat spiritually through the Torah, through understanding the Torah, through these teachings, my teachings are specifically designed with the intent of destroying Amalek, erasing Amalek completely regarding the concept of Mashiach ben Yosef. Because it's been revealed to me very clearly that that's what we've got to do. We don't give room to doubt. We don't let him have one foothold and he's completely erasing wherever he may be found. Whatever opponents you come across, even most of my opponents are dressed as Jews. I've just had a massive argument yesterday from a post that I posted on my Facebook account. I don't know, 50 or 60. I've had my name splattered across what used to be one of my very, very good friends. When you used to come to my house every Shabbat for meals. We've had festivals together, and yet splattered all over his Facebook page, really nasty stuff about I'm some kind of missionary and, clubbing me together with all kinds of rubbish. But anyway, you've got to carry on. And this was somebody that knows, who came to my house, and I've been kind and gracious to him, allowing him to be in my home on a Shabbat, allowing him to sleep on my settee so we can have a nice Shabbat shlof. And then this is what you get. Yesterday on his Facebook page, really nasty stuff, to the point where some stranger that I'd never even knew informed me of this. So at the end of the day, you've got enemies and the Amalekites, and they seek to destroy a revelation of Mashiach ben Yosef. And he's a converted Jew. So there you go. He's a Jew that converted to he's a former pastor that converted to Judaism, and you'll never ever meet a more Amalekite influenced man. You'll never meet anybody that's now more dominated by Amalek than the truth about Mashiach ben Yosef. He will have to go through his own correction, but I have suffered as a consequence of him being he didn't suffer that much, because you just thought, let him get on with it. But that's the kind of thing that you're up against, this Amalekite influence. Don't think it's just Nazis. There's people who are dressed as Jews that have got this same force that are trying to destroy anybody that would reveal the truth about Mashiach ben Yosef and create doubt. So he's got I don't know how many thousands of friends that now all think that I'm some kind of really wicked person doing wickedness in this world. And like I say, this was somebody that came to my house every Shabbat. I got when we were both going through converting to Judaism in Manchester, and like I said, I did all sorts. I gave him books, we've had the festivals together, everything that I could have possibly done, and yet this same person does that. So Amalekite is not just the Nazis. Don't be deceived. That's why we've got to pray, because Amalekite's got dressed up, and he might just look like a religious Jewish man, and he might just have a sting in his tail that you might just need to be very, very careful for, because he's working for this guy over here to provide concealment, and he's not at all working for a revelation. He wants to see you defeated. He wants to kill a revelation about Mashiach ben Yosef completely dead, because his arrogance and his ego is too bruised by the concept of Mashiach ben Yosef being Yeshua. It's as simple as that, because he's now filled full of pride that he's now a Jew, and he's part of this select elite holy little group huddle, and it's Amalek. we've got to bow down to them because they are so superior. And who are you, these scumbag Christians who believe that Jesus, who killed us Jews? And that's how, this is how doubt gets a hold of people, brainwashes you. This is exilic mindset, is Erev Rav. And like I say, yesterday I went up against it. These forces are real. These forces are real in this world. Let's not be deceived. We have a work to do. We need to get on and do it. Okay, so I wish him well. I hope he returns to his senses, because that is not his, as far as I can see, he has to transform that darkness and erase it completely, because he's only hurting himself. It's not Mashiach ben Yosef that has a sorry end, it's Amalek. You do his work, guess what's going to you? You have no chance in this world. You will be completely erased. You need to drop this lunacy. If you are serving in the ranks of Amalek, you're on the wrong side. You're on the wrong side. You need to drop that completely. Okay, so let's have a look what the holy side to this is. It just it fills me with joy. It fills me with joy when I see these numbers, because it gives me such hope and it's such light. And all that I see is the glory of YHVH revealed. So we've got Yaakov 182 plus Yaakov 188. Together they come to 370, which is 10 times 37. Okay, 37 is the ordinal of Yeshu, ordinally. Okay, so we've got to take this concept of the Mashiach ben Yosef, Yeshua, with his name erased and all this derogatory cursing and evil, we've got to transform that into light. Okay, and what helps us transform that into light? The power of Yaakov, which is our inner Israel, which is our soul, which is our good inclination. And what powers Yaakov? Truth. Okay, because we've got Yaakov, this is Yaakov unrectified, and then 5 times in the Tanakh Yaakov is spelt with an additional Vav, and the Vav represents truth. It also represents the entire 6,000 years, the 6 days of creation. Okay, so the 6 days of creation, the 6th letter of the alphabet is a Vav, and those 6 days represent the Vav. Okay, they also represent on the tree of life Tifereth, which Yaakov represents. Okay, so you can see Tifereth, beauty. There's it's really 6. There's 6 spheroth included in that. These are all Kabbalistic terms, but hopefully you'll understand. So there's Gevura, strength. Then there's Chesed, kindness, loving kindness. Gevura, strength and might, restriction, holy severity. And then you've got Tifereth, and which is beauty, and then you've got Hod and Netzach. So you've got eternity with Netzach's eternity, and Hod is like giving thanks or honor, kind of thing. And then you've got Yesod, which represents Yosef. So together they're 6 as well, that represents the 6 days of creation that must unite with the Malkuth, which represents the 7th day of creation. That's the kingdom that represents the Shabbat. So there's all these wonderful concepts together. So Yaakov is really representing those 6 days of creation that are really synonymous with the 6,000 years of rectification to transform this serpent into the Messiah. Okay, and very much involved with that is the concept of Mashiach ben Yosef in exile, suffering with us to accomplish that rectification of these last 6,000 years. So he is the force within creation that stands opposite the serpent, that one atones for the errors, the mistakes that we've made in this process, protects us from falling to the 50th level of impurity from which we could not return, and we all want to return. We all fell, we all want to return. So the Mashiach ben Yosef is there protecting us from descending too far into this exile, becoming too corrupt by the exilic serpent mindset, and to enable us to ultimately return back to Mashiach. Okay, Yeshua is the force of Mashiach ben Yosef in exile with us. protecting us to ensure this tikkun is successful, this rectification is successful, these 6,000 years are successful. So we can see it's linked to Yaakov. Okay, we've also got 47. The ordinal of Yaakov is 47. So straight away we can see that it's connected even with this way to a concept of it was a delight, which is what Chaya in the Garden of Eden was able to perceive in the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, which doesn't look up there much like a sin, but much more like a very brave act of a spiritual being willing to descend for the sake of an ultimate ascent. Down here it looks like she's sinned because we just see the fall. We don't see the part where she's actually perceived something better for her and Adam, and a willingness to go through this process in order to attain that ultimate rectification. Okay, so we see a connection there. And also Yaakov filled, additionally, just wait a minute, Yaakov filled with the extra vav is 53, which is exactly the same as Yeshua ordinally. Yeshua ordinally comes to 53. Add those two together, the two ordinals for Yaakov and Yaakov rectified comes to 100. Okay, so we add the 370, which is the regular, to the ordinal. We come to 470, which is 47 times 10. We can see Yaakov that represents the truth. Okay, and I'm going to come across this concept before, that represents Israel, that represents our soul. This is the ultimate force within us to defeat Amalek. That is the ultimate concealment. This is the ultimate truth. Our inner Yaakov, our soul, our good inclination is what ultimately, when it's empowered with the truth about what? The truth about what? The truth about Mashiach ben Yosef, but also the truth about this entire 6,000 years of history, the entire process of rectification in order to reveal the ultimate glory, which is the name Yod He Vav He. That's the truth. There's only one truth. It's Yod He Vav He. We're in a process of revealing from the serpent through the Mashiach the truth, that there is only Yod He Vav He and nothing else beside. He is the only authority. This evil is not really real. It feels like it down here, but ultimately it's just concealing true reality, and we have got to attain true reality. We've not got to live by these lies and delusion that this concealment creates within us. We've got to be empowered by the truth. What empowers Yaakov? The truth. Only the truth. And this comes by Eliyahu Hanavi. 5 times in Tanakh, Eliyahu Hanavi, Elijah the prophet, has got a missing vav from his name. 5 times in Tanakh, Yaakov has got an additional vav. Eliyahu Hanavi is the power, the force of prophecy, the flow of truth, if you like, from above to below, that empowers our good inclination to defeat our evil inclination, which is synonymous with Esau. Okay, so Yaakov, the truth, when we can look at the reality of the entire 6,000 years in a way that reveals the name Yod He Vav He instead of concealing the name Yod He Vav He, then that is the place which is called redemption, and we are redeemed because we are empowered by the truth to overcome the forces of concealment. Okay. Now we're going to see how Yaakov is connected to the truth, which is represented by the letter Vav. So Yaakov, the ordinal of Yaakov, is 47. The 3 fillings of the letter Vav, so we've got Vav Vav, Vav Aleph Vav, and Vav Yod Vav. These are the 3 ways in which we can fill the letter Vav. Comes to 47. We know the letter Vav represents the 6,000 years. And we know Yaakov represents the truth. So we've got to look at history, not through the eyes of a serpent. We've got to look at history through the eyes of truth, through the eyes of the Mashiach. Okay? And that will reveal to us Yod He Vav He instead of evil. We've also got another connection to the fact that Vav is connected to a revelation of the truth. Okay, because Vav is the 6th letter of the alphabet. So Vav times Vav, which is what's called an inter-inclusion of the letter Vav, it comes to 36. So a full inter-inclusion of the letter Vav, where everything is contained within everything else, comes to 36, which is the ordinal Emet, truth. So we know the letter Vav represents the truth. And also, not only that, we are told in the Torah of Moshiach, which is the 13 attributes of mercy as revealed in the book of the book of Micah. Okay, so we've got the 13 attributes of mercy that are revealed in the book of Micah, which is the highest levels of mercy possible to be revealed at the level of Keter Yechida, the same soul level as the Moshiach ben Yosef. Okay, and I've gone across this many times. This is a revelation ultimately of the name Yod He Vav He above the letter of the law. Moshe, he is a revelation of the 13 attributes of mercy as revealed within the letter of the law. Okay, so in the book of Exodus, there's a different set of 13 attributes of mercy. When Moshe was put in the cleft of the rock and the glory of Yod He Vav He passed him by, and he shouted out 13 utterances to describe that whole experience, and these are called the 13 attributes of mercy. In the book of Micah, there's 13 higher levels of mercy that are out with the letter of the law. They're all merciful. This is the Torah of Mashiach ben Yosef. Mashiach ben David will come and unite those both revelations of Yod He Vav He together as one. There's the two sticks that will become one in the hand, and that will reveal the one shepherd. And who's the one shepherd? Mashiach ben David. Okay, but in those 13 attributes of mercy that are written in the book of Micah, one of the 13 attributes are to give truth to Yaakov. Okay, what does that mean? That means Yaakov represents our good inclination. Our good inclination has got to dominate over our evil inclination, which is fueled with fantasy and fiction regarding the concept of Mashiach. We need the truth. We need to give Yaakov the truth, our good inclination. The only power that we've got to defeat a lie is the truth. You know, the lie is very forceful at this time in exile. It's very convincing. We've got to come up with something much more convincing that's based on truth as revealed in the mind of Yod He Vav He, not the mind of all these religious exiled mindsets, like the Erev Rav mindset that dominates in Judaism, the Edomite mindset that dominates in Christianity, and the Ishmaelite mindset that dominates in Islam, that affect the entire world in which we live. You know, these are very powerful exilic mindsets, but they're not the truth. We need a Hebrew mindset. Just as Yosef was called a Hebrew, we need a Hebrew mindset, which is synonymous with the truth. Where do we get that from? We get it from studying the Torah correctly. We get it from the Torah. It's the mind of God. The mind of Yod He Vav He is the Torah. And when we divest ourselves from our ego influence that comes as a result of inheriting the lies of all these major religions and the non-religions of this world, and when we divest ourselves from all this fantasy and fiction and empower our good inclination with the truth, then we will defeat this force that conceals the name Yod He Vav He, and we will instead have a force in our lives empowered by the truth that reveals the truth about Mashiach, that reveals the ultimate truth, which is Yod He Vav He. Okay, that's the process that we are in at this time to overcome, to empower our good inclination, our soul within us, to defeat to subdue, well, to completely erase some aspects of reality, but to subdue others to the side of holy. Okay? I go about this all the time. So we can't have one without the other, can we? We've got Mashiach ben David. This is the place where we want to go. This is what Chaya envisaged in the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. She envisaged the process with got to be an equal opposite force. Okay, we're in the tree of the knowledge of good and evil reality now. We want to get back to the tree of life reality. We have got duality in this reality. So for everything holy, we've got a unholy opposite. So we've got Mashiach ben David, which is 424, and now we've got Armalus, the anti-Messiah. So it's 347 May try and have a quick look at some of the numbers in that. It's very interesting. But if you go and look at my previous teachings on Armorless, I've done previous teachings on the concept of the Jewish anti-Messiah. Just type in Armorless, you'll get a few videos. Very interesting stuff. Okay, to understand this concept, what we've got to defeat in order to reveal, what we've got to transform in order to, what we've got to transform from darkness into light. Okay, so but we've got to work. The concept of Mashiach is not handed to us on a plate. The light is not given to us on a plate. We've got to wrestle with the darkness until it yields the blessing of light. Okay, we've got to transform it. So 347 plus 77 ordinal comes to 424, which is Mashiach ben David. 77 is one of the ways that Moshe is filled, when the hair is filled with an aleph. Okay, so he is opposed to Moshe. He is opposed to Mashiach ben Yosef. We can see we can see in the teachings that I've done previously how that number is connected to Mashiach ben Yosef. So he's opposed opposite the three concepts of Mashiach: Moshe, Mashiach ben Yosef, Mashiach ben David. Okay, and we have got to transform this serpent, this power of the serpent, into Mashiach. It's as simple as that. All the lies regarding Mashiach ben Yosef, all the things that cause separation between Jews and Christians and Muslims, we've got to erase this little restricted version of who we think and what we think Messiah is, and instead be empowered with the true concept of Mashiach. Okay? And I've also got this 460. I already pointed it out, but 460. The reason why I've got put 460 is because this is connected to the word Shema in some way. So 460 equals 5 times 92. Okay, so it's obviously 92 is connected to Chaya. It's all in green. Like 10 times this, it was a delight, comes to 460, which is 5 times 92. Okay, and 5 times something's a rectification of it. What's it a rectification of? Mashiach ben David. So we just see a little connection there. Just wanted to point it out. Right, let's go and look at some of these verses. So this is from Micah 7.8. It's just before the revealing of the 13 attributes of mercy. That's also in Micah 7. I think it starts at let me just have a look. Yeah, the 13 attributes of mercy as written in Micah are: who is God like you? It starts at Micah 7:18. Who is God like you, who pardons sin and forgives the transgressions of the remnant of his inheritance? You do not stay angry forever, but delight to show mercy. You will again have compassion on us. You will tread our sins underfoot and hurl our iniquities into the depths of the sea. You will give truth to Yaakov and show mercy to Abraham, as you pledged on oath to our fathers in days long ago. So there are the 13 attributes of mercy as revealed in Micah, and this just precedes it. Rejoice not against me, my enemy, although I have fallen I will rise, although I will sit in darkness. So we've got the darkness here that we have all been sitting in, 401. It will go on to say, I will yet rise. Just let me get that right again. So we've got all these wonderful, wonderful promises and things to look for. Just pick this out. Just closed it up now. That's not good, is it? Right. Oh yeah, though I sit in the darkness, the Lord will be my light. Okay, although I sit in darkness, Yod He Vav He will be my light. Okay, so we've got something. We're just at that stage now, aren't we? But we've got to tip the balance into the place from concealment to revelation. Okay, from the darkness into the light. So we can see why that would be connected. And it's just given me a good opportunity to go over the 13 attributes of mercy in Micah 7:18 to reveal this concept regarding Yaakov. Give truth to Yaakov. Okay. Other phenomena. Oh, it just gets more and more glorious. So the letters on the dreidel, the Nes Gadol, Hayasham. This is what we say when we're outside Israel. When we're outside in the diaspora, when we're exiled, it's Nes Gadol, Hayasham, which we can see is exactly the same as Nechash, ordinal as well. So it's we when we're outside, when we're subject to the forces of the serpent, when we're subject to the forces of Esav. Look, when our body dominates over our soul, we've got this dreidel, Nes Gadol, Hayasham. Those add up to Mashiach. Okay. When we're inside, when we reach that place of redemption, the letters of the dreidel change to Nes Gadol, Hayapo. A great miracle happened here. Okay, and because of that we get completely different numbers. But like I say, until we reach that place of redemption, until we overpower, like this one, 2 times 401, when we're still here, 401, we've got to get ourselves from that place of darkness into that place of light. We've got to transform. And Hanukkah is all about rededication, isn't it? Rededicating our holy temple, which is synonymous with our bodies. Rededicating our bodies and from the unholiness that is subject to in exile to holy purposes. You know, taking even the mundane aspects of our life and transforming those into a revelation. That's what we are ultimately trying to attain. Okay? And we can see this whole concept of Hanukkah is very much involved with that. The rededication. And it's the light in the darkest time, isn't it? When you get into the winter, we've suddenly got this incredible festival that's entirely, completely, totally messianic. Every last thing about it is pointing to a revelation of the Mashiach. Okay, so we've got this beautiful festival of lights. It's absolutely glorious. I've even been to Israel on more than one occasion. I've lit my Hanukkah candles in Jerusalem, and it's just been a blessing from start to finish. It's a joy. And everywhere you go, there's these wonderful little boxes, glass boxes on the outside of people's doors, especially when you're going through the old city of Jerusalem. It's just absolutely glorious, and you see all these wonderful boxes. And then when you get onto the 8th day, it's just wonderful. I've been down at the Western Wall and seen the chief rabbi light the candles, light the menorah, and it's just a blessing. It's light in a great darkness. So we've got even things like that we can relate to, and that can help us to transform that darkness into light. And also these letters rearranged to spell Goshna, and Goshna is the place where Yaakov and the 70 members of his family went to live in Egypt, and that was the beginning of the exile. And we know from what Yosef said, this was all part of the plan of YHVH to cause Israel to descend into slavery for an ultimate revelation of redemption. Okay, so that place, Goshna, towards Goshen, is those exact same level letters. So we know that this is something to do with exile. Okay, this state of exile where we have got the name YHVH concealed because our bodily forces are dominating over our soul forces. Right, let's have a look. And then we've got this one. Do not fear him, for I have delivered him, his people, and his land into your hand. This is from Numbers 21:34. So we've got that. This is Sichon, I think, king of the Amorites. I think that's what that's talking about. So obviously this is the outside of Eretz Israel, isn't it? This is the Transjordan, I think they call it, or the eastern side of the Yarden, the part of the land of Israel that was given over to Gad and Reuben and half tribe of Manasseh. Okay, so it's not the land of Israel proper, is it? So we're at this place where we're right there. Although will sit in darkness, you just got that next push to get into that state of redemption, haven't you? Enter into the Holy Land. So this is just the moment prior to that entering into the Holy Land. It hasn't quite tipped the scales, has it? Whereas this is 2 times that the revelation of Joseph tips the scales, doesn't it, and defeats this. It's all wonderful ways in which YHVH is communicated to us to help us defeat all these forces of delusion and lie. When we put the text and the numbers together and unite them together and weave them together, then we're building up a picture of YHVH that's glorious, and this helps us defeat these horrible exilic mindsets which makes us feel like heaven is brass and what is God doing, what is all this that's happening, there can't possibly be a God. Some people conclude the doubt actually defeats them, and this is a reality of the world in which we are living in now. So we've got to reach that place where we're tipping the balance, and this is right on it, isn't it? We need to tip the balance into revelation from darkness. And then we've got this: hearken to me, O Yaakov and Israel, who was called by me, I am he. I'm going to bring up the thing, and clearly we can see that this is 4 times this. So again, we've got the concept of Yaakov and Israel, which is an even higher exalted level of Yaakov, and we've got that is 4 times the 401, and it's like I'm saying Yaakov is the force that overpowers this delusion, the worst aspects of the delusion, and that is synonymous with truth. And then you've got this whole concept as well that is I am he, I am first, yea, I am last. So we've got that ultimate revelation, isn't it? This is the first letter of the alphabet and the last. So what is that concluding with us? Once we get to here, once we've defeated the serpent, we've got a revelation of the first and the last is here. Hearken to me, O Yaakov, and to Israel, who is called by me, I am he. So this is this is what tips, what transforms the serpent into a revelation of Mashiach. And then we've got I am first, yea, I am last. So then we've got that Aleph and Tav concept, the first Adam and the last Adam. The first Adam that fell, the last Adam that rose. And we know that even if you look, the letter Tav is the seal of truth. That's exactly what it's called, and you can find that in the book, The Hebrew Letters. So what reveals the ultimate... I've lost my marker now. So the Aleph really is Hashem hidden, and the Tav is the truth revealed. And they unite together to bring about a revelation of Mashiach ben David. So here, this could be seen as, Yaakov and Israel, that we get to that place of truth, and through the truth about Yosef, we get a revelation of the Aleph and the Tav, which is ultimately Mashiach ben David, a full rectification of Adam up to the final Adam, and all humanity resurrected back to our level in the Garden of Eden. And then we've got this is just to finish off, this whole concept of tikkun that we're going through. Who makes peace and who creates evil? Okay, so this is from Isaiah 45:7. I've done massive analysis on this. This is that whole process of transforming evil into light. Transforming darkness into light and evil into shalom. Okay, so it says in Isaiah 45:7, it actually puts who creates evil and who makes peace. And who creates evil and makes peace. It's in that order. I've put it in the wrong order. But this is a whole process of transformation, isn't it? We take the evil and from it we create shalom, which is the same gematria as Esav. Esav is 376, and which is synonymous with physical reality and our bodies, and shalom is also 376. Okay, so we've got to take our physical reality and our experience in these 6,000 years and transform that, this physical reality that we have been subject to, we transform that into, from the evil that it is, into shalom. And with that vessel of shalom that we have transformed from our physical reality, from our from our experience of physical reality, the evil that we have transformed into shalom is the vessel in which we will fill with the light of the name YHVH. Because I've pointed this out many times, the only vessel that can contain a blessing is the vessel of shalom. But we don't get that handed to us. We have to make that out of the evil that we have experienced in this world. Okay, we add these numbers together. Let's just go through these then. So, the regular and ordinal of who makes peace comes to 845, which is 5 times 169. And it's connected to the 13 attributes of mercy, as revealed in Exodus, because that has got 169 letters, which is 13 times 13. And 13 is echad, oneness. And we've talked about echad being an acronym for Adam, Chaya, David. So very significant, and it's also ahava, love. So we've got these, we've got this connection to 13 back up to all these concepts that we've been speaking about. And then the ordinal for who makes peace is 94, which is 2 times Yaakov, 2 times 47. So we can see all the connections there. We've got to have truth, which is represented by this in order to defeat the evil forces, to subdue them or erase them. Subdue Esav, erase Amalek. And then we've got this, and who creates evil, 485 plus 71, that's Yonah. So this is the state that we're in, isn't it? You know, when Mashiach ben Yosef said, the only sign I'm prepared to give you is the sign of Yonah, and all my teachings pull up this concept all the time. Yonah is the concept of the descent into the soul, into the body, ultimately. Okay, and what we've been talking about in order to bring about a rectification. Together they come to 556. If we add this and this together, we come to 1,401, which is 3 times 467, and that is the 92nd prime, which is Mashiach ben David rectified. This number up here, Mashiach ben David rectified, the ordinal of it. But it's 1,000 plus 401, isn't it? So we've got the concept of the snake, which is 401, which we need to transform into a revelation of Mashiach, and the 1,000 is the concept of Mashiach. Okay, so all 3 concepts of Mashiach. 1,000 represents the letter Aleph, the Misbar Gadol of Aleph, the big Aleph, and that is known as Moshe, Ha-Aleph Ha-Gadol. Aleph Hagadol, the big Aleph, and Moshe's called Aleph Hagadol, the big Aleph. Okay, so that represents the 1,000, and plus Mashiach ben David, 434, the rectified version of Mashiach ben David, 434, plus Mashiach ben Yosef, 566, comes to 1,000. So basically, this whole experience of taking the evil that we've all experienced, or the darkness that we've all experienced, and transforming it into light, and taking the evil and transforming it into shalom, okay, is all connected to this concept of taking the serpent and transforming it into a revelation of the Mashiach. And we can see that with that number, because here we've got the Nachash attached to the entire concept of Moshiach. We cannot have one without the other. Okay, and let's have a look what I've finished with. Oh, this is it. But we have got this battle, like I say, and we can see it here, the 470 with Amalek. But if we take the entire ordinals and add them together, the 60, 137 and the 377, the ordinals, and add them together, come to 574. If we take the entire regulars, 240, 470 and 1457, and add them together, we get to 2,000, it's up here, isn't it? 2,167. So if we take those two numbers, add them together, we get to 2,741, which is the 401st prime, probably from 1, because that's how all Hebrew primes are calculated. So we can see that the sum total of Amalek is very much connected to the Nachash, and we've got to defeat that force of Amalek in order to reveal the Moshiach. And with that, I will say Shalom.